The nose thing. The nose thing's going to drive me crazy. So today we're getting ready. We're getting ready to film a video about some books that I got from a bookstore in Atlanta called Charis Bookstore. I don't know if it's Sherry, Charis, and I went there, I want to say in 2023. And let me tell you, Atlanta has a lot of bookstores. They have a lot of bookstores. The only problem, oh, hold on 1 second. I forgot to turn the AC off. I did that before. Thank you, anonymous viewer. So I went to Charis Bookstore. We're just going to call it Cherry, right? I went to Charis Bookstore because it was close to where I was at the time. Atlanta has a lot of bookstores. The thing about them is that they're really spread out. So if you want to hit a couple of them, which is what I usually try to do when I go to a city that I'm unfamiliar with, I try to at least go to 2 bookstores. With time compression, like 40 minutes to get from one bookstore to another is a lot. So I just went to this one and it was a really good bookstore. And when I went there, I practiced what I have done since then, and it's had wonderful results, is that I asked the person at the bookstore, what books do you recommend? And it's funny because in most bookstores, people will recommend like a couple, and I might ask for more books, but they usually start with like 1 or 2. This lady handed me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books, and I think she was recommending even more. But I left some. I left with 6 books, 1 that I chose myself, but the rest is all from her. So I would say for good or bad, we're going to blame her, but I've read some of all of them and they're all spectacular. Spectacular. I feel like I'm going to say that in every single video. Spectacular. Give me 19 more. So we're getting ready to film that video. Where's my, oh, it is. And the reason why I chose Atlanta as this month's, this isn't what I want, book video, it's for a few reasons. One, nope, this isn't what I want either. Damn it, guys. Damn it, guys. This is what I want, I think. Maybe it's this one. The reason why I chose Atlanta is a few things. One, it's Black History Month, and Atlanta is a wonderful, historical Black city. The other thing is the woman who made me these recommendations, I should put this here. She didn't ask me like what kind of books I read. That happens a lot when I ask for these recommendations too. And I'll usually give them an idea, but I really want them to give me unique things. So I don't try and get too complicated, but she didn't even ask me. She just handed me, and again, this was in 2023. She just handed me the most like Black set of books that I've gotten in any bookstore. Like, I believe all of the authors are Black. A lot of it is about the Black experience in America. Some of it is about ideas of liberation around abolishing the police system. 2 of them, funny enough, ironically enough, are based off of a lot of Octavia Butler's work, which cut to today, again, I went to visit this store in 2023, cut to today, and her Parable of the Sower series, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in the video because it's relevant. Her Parable of the Sower series is like all over social media because of its kind of future telling themes. Like, it's set in 2024. California's on fire. We have a wild president who wants to make America great again. The exact words in the book, even though, you know, that slogan was from Reagan. That was pre when Parable of the Sower was written. But the fact that there would be a president who would use those slogans again in the future is interesting. And the premise is this is like post kind of apocalypse, not of one particular thing that happened, but it's more of everything that was happening at the time, creating this unsustainable model around the world, but it's based in the United States. And it's talking about climate change. It's talking about how that's affected food availability and vulnerable communities. Like, the rich are behind walls and they have armed guards and they're living well, and the poor people, they're very poor, and it's become dangerous because there are different levels of poverty and how violent or how, what's the word I'm looking for? How extreme you're willing to be given your extreme circumstances. So she took everything that was happening already at that time, and she just followed it to its foregone conclusions. That's her word, like, not her exact words, but her idea of, those are words that she said in an interview when somebody asked her about what did she think about the future that she was telling before she passed away. And so one of the books that I'm going to talk about is called Pleasure Activism, and it's based off of a lot of her kind of works and ideology and other Black writers' ideology, and she references her directly in the book. And then there's this book called Emergent Strategy, and it's taking the tenets of the religion that the heroine in that story, in Octavia Butler's story, creates, and opening up some of the ideas that she bases it on. Give me 1 second, 1 second. So it's super timely because it's Black History Month, but it's also like Octavia Butler Renaissance time, and it's also Trump is in office and the things that have drastically changed in the last month. And it's also like with Octavia Butler stuff, we keep coming back to this idea of like, wow, it's so crazy how these things come up again, or wow, it's so crazy how these themes reappear, and we're struggling with having to figure out these same broken systems. And the reality is that it's not surprising because the broken systems never got fixed. They've just gotten worse. And like the book on the abolition of the police, I need to put these to the side. No, the abolition of policing, or the police state as it exists, the abolition of the prison system as it exists, has been a very popular conversation the last few years. And there are people who, are making moral arguments about how the system is broken. But there are people who are like, are you crazy? Like, how do we have a world without police? What if somebody's doing something to you? What if somebody's trying to harm you? How do you who are you going to call? Like, right? Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? And, you know, that feels like such a valid argument. But a lot of the response to that is like, that system works for such a small amount of people, and the abuses that happen writ large, like you can't reform that system. You have to tear the whole thing down and start over and create kind of like a community-based policing model, which is what the idea is, right? Like you have people in it's old community style, right? Like somebody was doing something bad in the old town, and the people would come together and punish them. They might throw rocks at them. They might kill them by accident. That's why official institutions came about, because we're animals and mob rule, and then we do wild things. And you know, as you become more civilized, you want to get away from that, but then those systems get exploited. Anyways, so that has been a conversation for years, for very, very many years for some people, but very popular in kind of social internet spaces the last like 5 years or so. And it has new relevance today with the expansion of ICE and the expansion of the detention centers that the current administration is asking the state to sponsor and to pay for. And so you start asking, like, how are more prisons going to help, especially when there's just not enough people to hold all these people that you're trying to hold. And there's not a way for it to be humane in any way, shape, or form. It already wasn't. Like, if you read anything about ICE detention centers, like, they don't have the rights of American citizens. And people in American prisons are already mistreated, but people in the ICE detention centers, like, can have a broken arm and they have to wait and petition and hope that they'll be approved for like an x-ray, and they get held there for years. And these are people who like came to the border and said, help me, please, I would like to be a part of your country. And this was before Trump. During Biden's administration, they made the rules that you wait in detention for your case to be heard. And so you come and say, please help me, and they're like, no problem, go stay in jail till I have time to talk to you. And then when they do have time to talk to you, 9 times out of 10, they're telling you no anyway. So the system was already a bit broke. Friends. And so this is that book that's mostly talking about, well, I don't know if it's mostly talking about, because I just read the first few chapters, but that's a lot of what it looks like her work is. It is, we do this till we free us. All of these books, with the exception of one, are fairly small. Like this one is, I always say things like it's small to my husband, and he's like, I'm like, it's small, it's only 300 pages, or it's small, it's only 257 pages. And he's like, that's not small, it's a lot of pages. But to people like us who read, it's 197 pages. It is small. If it's like 500, that's substantial, guys. Into the 400s, we could say it's like larger, but definitely 500. This is the biggest one. This is approaching 400. And then, but the rest of these are all little. This is an actual little book. And then this one's even tinier. This one's like 130 pages. This one is amazing so far. Like, I want to finish it in half an hour. But I'm not going to get into talking too much about the books, because that's what I'm going to talk about in the video, guys. So this one, it seems like she's an activist, Mariame-Kaba. And a lot of her work, it looks like, centers around prison abolition, to abolish the prison state, not prison reform. And the argument for it. And like, if you could start from zero, the idea of if you could start from zero, we are humans and we have thought of all of these amazing things in this world. We've created these complex technological systems. We've, you know, the old adage, we've put a man on the moon. And so if we had unlimited resources, which the prison complex takes up a lot of resources, but if we had unlimited resources and all the best imaginations available to us, what could we come up with? If it was at zero, if you looked at it from nothing, if you had to go create a brand new society, and in your society would live all of the people in your family, your community, your friends, all the people that you care about. And within that space, how would you go about creating law and order? That's a horrible term, but how would you go about creating like structural processes for when people do bad things, because we're human? And like, that's a part of it too, is like when people are saying like, oh, what are you going to do when you need help? Because, oh, what do you think? Nothing's going to happen. Like, no, this isn't a world where we can pretend like there's going to be a utopia and everybody's going to be kind and good and we're only going to do nice things to each other. Like, you have to live in reality. People are going to do bad things. And what do you do? What structure would you have in place if the people that you cared most about were being human beings and messing it up? You know, when they stole things, when they harmed their spouses, when they harmed each other, when things like that happen, what would that structure look like? I'm having a Patrick Ta day and they're super pigmented. So it needs to be careful because, as we established in the last video, I don't know what I'm doing. I know enough to like get it done, but I know enough also to be a danger to myself. So if I look crazy, that's okay. I don't remember if it's this one first and that one second. So, and I think that by approaching it from that lens, not of like, how do we police or how do we create organizational structures for all of the criminals? How do we create organizational structures for all the bad guys? Like, I think if we look at it like, how would I create an organizational structure for literally my family? I grew up in a family that had good guys and bad guys. I had people who got it right and who didn't, and bad guys in very small ways. Think like, you know, little kids stealing candy from the corner store, to bad guys in big ways. And if I had known and grew up around, all the powder's making my nose itch. If I had known and grew up around and cared about these people, what would I want my punishment of them to look like? And I think if you start there, it becomes a very different conversation. And that's why people who make a lot of money off of the police state and the prison system do their best to create these others, right? To separate the good people from these others that they're imprisoning, from these murderers and rapists. And they are imprisoning murderers and rapists, but they're also imprisoning embezzlers and petty thieves and drug addicts and drunk drivers and, again, people you might be related to. So that's the conversation that book is trying to have. And I never really engaged with that idea too much before because it does feel overwhelming. Like it doesn't just feel overwhelming, it also feels impossible. Like it feels like the idea that the prison complex doesn't exist, or the world in which the prison system doesn't exist as it exists today, it feels like that's an impossibility. Like we're just having the conversation to have the conversation. I don't think it's ever going to be abolished, that anybody would actually let that happen. And I feel like the majority of the world, or at least this country, feels that way. And I think it's why a lot of us don't engage in that conversation. Like, what's the point, right? What's the point, guys? There's a lot of that with just politics in general. What's the point of even talking about this? What's the point of wasting my time on something that I have no power over? And I just really feel like at this point in my life, I don't care if it's impossible. Like, I want to talk about a world that I feel better about, or I don't know about better about, but that I feel listen, human beings have been on this planet for I don't know how many thousands of years, and the way that society has looked from 1,000-year jump to 1,000-year jump and across continents is vastly different. And I don't know what it's going to look like one day. And maybe one day somebody will be having conversations like we are today, referencing Octavia Butler, whose writings were 30 years ago. Eek! But maybe one day somebody in 50 years will be referencing these conversations and her conversations and saying, how can I make this different? And maybe they will. You never know. So I'm not talking about it or reading about it necessarily for today, but I'm reading about it for like my hope of a better tomorrow. Gotta change one mind at a time, So here's the thing with makeup for like recording. Like when I look at it, I feel like I have 400 pounds of makeup on my face. But when I look in the camera, or like after I see the recording, it looks like I have barely anything. Like I understand why people on TV wear 400 pounds of makeup now. And so I have to like practice being a little more heavy-handed. So I put my blush on with one small brush, and then I kind of like blend it out with this giant brush. It is because I'm like manually, I don't know, uncoordinated. And so when I try to like blend things out with a finer tool, it just doesn't work. So if you have trouble blending things like I do, get yourself some giant brushes and apply like a crazy person, like I do. Like I'll be pointing a small brush in my mind. I'm pointing it here, and somehow I end up like up here. I don't know what that is. It's what happens. So this helps because I can like make it all blendy, make it look like I don't have two crazy clown spots on my face. And if I still feel like it's like too much, that also like takes some of it back. Okay. My nose is driving me crazy. I think I have like a light, allergy to makeup. Because like the amount of itching that happens on my face as soon as I have any kind of foundation on is horrendous. See, guys? Again, no idea what I'm doing. And then, oh, I didn't bring my makeup remover. All right, we're going to do it with my finger lightly because I always get mascara under my eyes. And if you don't, then you are the real MVP because it's not me. And then we just have our lips and then we'll be ready to film. Oh, and I was aiming to do it in a half an hour. And I'm like, right on the dot. Because technically it's going to be 1. And I started like a few minutes late. Look at me, guys, getting it done. Not talking too much because I talk too much. Who would have thought? Not me. Not me. Ha 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 ha. So I'm really excited about this upcoming video. The last video that I did was about the TikTok books that I read, and that was kind of like a saying goodbye to the consumption of the popular books in booktube that I felt like I needed to talk about when I was first doing this channel. Maybe every once in a while, if it's like appealing to me, I will do those things. But moving forward, I'm going to be talking about things that interest me, that I actually want to read because I love reading. And I'm not going to ruin my love of reading by feeling like I have to do anything, because that was not the point of this. The point of this was, oh, this is something that I already love doing. And there's so many times I would love to have somebody to talk about books with. And there's a whole community on YouTube that does that. And I was like, oh, amazing. I can do that. And then I started feeling like this pressure to do it in a certain way. And that's gone. So when I go to a bookstore and I bring back all these books that I love, I'm going to read them and I'm going to talk about them. And you guys can talk about them with me. And you can meet new books that you might not have met otherwise. Or, oh, forgot my lipstick. Or you don't have to read it. That's okay. We can still be friends. I won't get upset with you. So I'm kind of going pink because I have my Valentine's shirt on with all my hearts. I got this shirt with a bunch of other ones that are kind of the same style, and I love them. I love how like romantic they are. It's by a brand called Something English. I got to figure out how to tag it. All right, guys. Great talking to you. See you in a video soon. Hope you watch the video, and we'll be back here again.